This week on Money Matters, market jitters continue after China's stock market crumbled earlier this month, leading to heavy intervention from Beijing. How does this all affect the Korean economy? The United Nations celebrates its 70th anniversary this year. With over 190 member states, how does it pull together its funds? The UN in numbers. Economic development versus the environment and the quest to find a mid-ground for sustainable growth. We look at green growth potential. What stories matter in Asia? We'll look at the changing landscape of business in Korea and the rest of Asia on Money Matters. Hello everyone, I'm Na-hyun Kyung. Thanks for joining us this week. Let's begin with some of the top business headlines across Asia. Korea has launched its new K-Top 30 index on its stock exchange, modeled after the U.S. Dow Jones Industrial Average. It consists of 30 significant companies based on market capitalization. Officials hope the new index will help further invigorate investment and better reflect the state of economic growth in the country. Leading blue-chip firms such as Samsung Electronics, Hyundai Motor, and SK Hynix are included in the index. There are concerns, though, that K-Top 30 may not guarantee stable returns. Performance will hinge upon how many related financial products are pushed out and whether it can establish itself as a leading index in the near future. Korea saw a total of 8 items top global rankings in products and services based on market share last year. That's up from 6 categories in the previous year. The Japanese business daily Nihon Keizai Shimbun conducted the survey on 50 products and services where Korea nabbed first place in areas such as shipbuilding, smartphones, liquid crystal panels, and lithium-ion batteries. The U.S. topped the list with 16, followed by Europe at 10 and Japan at 9. China was close behind Korea with 6 items topping the list. Exports for Korea's information and communications technology sector have maintained an upward trend for 2 consecutive months. The Ministry of Science, ICT and Future Planning said outbound shipments in the ICT field chalked up $13.95 billion in the month of June, ticking up 0.2% on year. The figures were driven by smartphones like Samsung's Galaxy S6 and LG's G4, which contributed to a near 20% surge compared to the same period last year. Semiconductors, computers, and other related electronic devices also fueled this boost. Investors remain skittish over volatility in China's stock market. Following a near 30% nosedive on the main Shanghai Composite Index over less than 4 weeks, global investors are carefully watching to see whether there should be further reason for concern. Beijing's heavy-handed measures to slam the brakes on the stock rout have rattled investor confidence. Concerns are that such dramatic intervention could be a sign that policymakers have less confidence about the economy and are pointing to a negative direction of growth. Asian stocks started mostly higher this week, but the mood of caution lingers. Now, as we just said, it's been a roller coaster ride on the Chinese stock market for the past month. There still remains a lot of uncertainties in the market, and global investors, as well as those in Korea, are keeping a close watch on how movements in China might impact things elsewhere. Take a look.
It's been a turbulent month for China's stock market. An estimated $3.2 trillion in market cap has evaporated as a result of extreme volatility.
两市一共有2776家上市公司。那么根据这个来测算呢，停牌的公司的数量已经占到了近一半。
Stories about investors shedding massive sums have been spilling out each day. The benchmark Shanghai Composite has been on a wild roller coaster ride. It soared past the 4,000 mark in April before peaking at 5,178 points in June. It then took a nosedive, hitting 3,422 points on July 8th. Since then, it's been on a slight upward trend. Experts have cited three main reasons as to why there have been such severe swings in the market. First is the state's excessive policies aimed at invigorating the local bourses. Second is that 80% of traders were individuals who used borrowed money to invest, but regulators started clamping down on margin trading.
而且这个在贫富差距增大的过程中，成为富有者、成为社会的这种握有权力的这样的人呢，他们通过的是各种各样的手段。其实有很多的我们说的投机取巧的这样的手段，所以呢，有一些人希望能够有一夜致富，一下子变成富翁这样的心理。所以呢，促成了现在很多的人因为手中的钱不够，所以通过配资的方式，能够一下子运作更多的资本，能够从中获得巨大的利润。
Lastly, there was a disconnect between the past year's stock market boom and the real economy. While equities soared, the Chinese economy entered a slowdown after decades of strong growth. This gap eventually caught up with the share prices, which in turn hampered consumer confidence.
我觉得这个下跌的原因呢，现在这个市场上讲得非常混乱，涨得过快，涨得过猛，涨得太高。
Although volatility comes as an intrinsic part of the stock market, the latest movements in China have been much too extreme, prompting some to call it a bubble.
The Chinese stock market has been the darling of global equity markets over the last year. Despite the latest correction, the stock market has surged more than 90%. However, the market has been extremely volatile as well. It has plunged more than 30% from its June 12 peak just within 3 weeks. That's why some experts compare the Chinese stock market to a casino.
Uncertainties in China's stock market have been weighing down on Korean equities as well. With a quarter of the country's outbound shipments going to China and many companies either based there or partially funded by Chinese capital, a number of companies have seen their stock prices fall. Koreans have about $1.8 billion invested in Chinese funds. In the past month, 85 of these averaged a negative return rate of around 21%. Aside from such direct impact, China's turmoil is expected to weigh on Korean investor sentiment. A sudden fall in the Chinese stock market is indicative of a decline in its real economy and is a warning that domestic consumption will soon follow.
중국 증시 전체가 이제 불안에 빠지게 되면 우리나라에 들어와 있는 차이나머니, 중국 금융자본이 이제 불안감에 빠지게 돼서 흡수될 수 있는 가능성이 높습니다. 더구나 하반기에 미국의 금리 인상이 예정되어 있기 때문에 신흥국을 중심으로 한 자본들이 계속해서 이제 위축이 될 수밖에 없는 상황에서 이런 중국 자본의 이제 불안, 흡수는 결국 우리나라 금융시장의 위축으로 나타날 수밖에 없고요.
Instability in China is quick to spread throughout the rest of Asia. When Chinese shares fell, so did those in Japan, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. When China rebounded, so did the rest. This is because China is a major consumer of tourism and retail in the area, and any change in China's consumption patterns will have reverberating effects. Feared contagion is why all eyes turn to China in the midst of such uncertainty, prompting Beijing to move quickly.
정부가 내놓은 여러 가지 대책들이 있지 않습니까? 현재로서는 불안감을 잠재우는 데 효과가 있겠지만 결국은 중국 기업들이나 중국 경제가 어느 정도 이 세계 시장에 대한 확신을 줘야 됩니다. 우리 경제가 좀 성장할 수 있는 가능성이 더 있고 세계 경제를 끌고 갈 힘이 있고 아직 우리나라 증시는 생각보다 비싼 것은 아니다라는 어떤 인식을 줄 수 있을 때만이 이런 근본적인 회의에서 좀 벗어날 수 있을 것 같습니다.
As one of the world's largest consumer markets wielding massive influence on the global stage, attention will without question remain on China's markets and movements in the economy.
The intergovernmental organized United Nations has made its presence in all parts of the world, promoting international cooperation as well as peace and safety. Now we see them on the front lines in some of the most war-torn territories and bringing aid to disease-stricken areas. But how much does it cost for this global organization? Well, on today's In Numbers, we'll be taking a look at a breakdown of the financial logistics of the UN as well as Korea's involvement within. For the 2014-2015 regular budget, the United Nations General Assembly approved a $5.53 billion budget, and that's down 1% from the total spending of the two previous years.
This new biennial budget includes a 2% staffing cut and a one-year freeze in staff compensation to account for the decrease. Now, as for who's a part of the UN, founded in 1945 with only 51 member states, the UN has since grown and is now made up of 193 countries, with each member country allotted a different percentage of financial contribution. Now, that ranges anywhere from 0.001% to 22%. Now, just like we have deadlines to pay our bills, these member countries are also given due dates. And in fact, it said only 13 of the 193 member countries pay their contributions on time. Interesting to know big countries face due dates and deadlines just like us. But who amongst the UN members contributes the most to this $5.5 billion budget? Well, the US is responsible for 22% of the budget, making it the biggest contributor. It's then followed by Japan, Germany, France, and the UK, respectively. They make up the top 5 contributors, but also to make the list of top 17 is South Korea, accounting for just about 2% of the budget. The remaining 18.4% of the budget is made up of the other 176 countries, and that includes North Korea. South Korea's role within the UN took a jump in 2007 when Korea's very own Ban Ki-moon was selected Secretary General of the UN. Now, on top of that, the number of Koreans within the UN staff has also continued to rise. Within the UN Secretariat, a body made up of 44,000 people from the various member countries, the number of Korean nationals is said to be on the rise as well. From 2010 to 2014, there was a 30% increase in Korean members over that short 5-year span. Well, that wraps up today's In Numbers. I'll be keeping my eyes on any trends and developments coming your way.
All right, it's time to check out the most eye-catching stories and trends in business. For that, our Son Mi-sorang joins us as usual. Good to see you again, Mi-sorang.
Good to be here.
What have you brought for us today?
Well, today I brought a small coin with me.
You literally brought something.
I did. So this is Korean 500 won coin, worth a bit less than 50 US cents. So normally it's just pocket change we have lying around, but it could be worth a small fortune.
Small fortune. How do you mean? You mean buying a lottery ticket with that money?
Well, I suppose it is a bit like winning the lottery. At this very moment, hundreds of people have 500 won coins worth up to 3,000 times their face value. Now, of course, it's not all 500 won coins, but ones made in 1998. Normally, millions of 500 won coins are produced each year, but cost-cutting measures at the mint during the Asian financial crisis meant that only 8,000 were produced in the year 1998, and even then, only in mint sets for export. So one of these rare coins fetched $1,200 at the latest auction, so it might be worth going through your change to test your luck. And sales of premium baijiao in China is on a rebound. It's a staple gift among high-ranking government officials, but demand for the clear spirit plunged under President Xi Jinping's anti-corruption campaign. But aggressive marketing and a fall in prices in recent years have made the once luxurious drink popular across a wider demographic. The country's top premium baijiao brand, Kweiqiao Mao Tai, already reached 60% of its 2015 sales target in May and expects profits to increase 11% from last year. Some market watchers also say that economic slowdown is helping sales by nudging people toward hard liquors.
I mean, it's been said that red lipsticks, miniskirts, and spicy foods all sell better during economic downturns, but those notions have faded recently. I guess it still holds for hard liquor, at least in China.
Well, the items that you mentioned, the theory is that they bring comfort and stress relief in the face of economic uncertainty, but in the face of prolonged slow growth, it's hard to know whether it still holds true. In the case of baijiao in China, the argument is that Chinese have a very good appetite for drinks that'll give them an extra strong kick. So the more affordable the prices get, the more happy drinkers you'll see.
All right, and now you have news of a massive online sale in the U.S. that will loosen people's purse strings.
That's right, and it's supposed to be even bigger than Black Friday. Online retail giant Amazon is celebrating its 20th birthday by holding a one-day event where prices of electronics, toys, clothing, sporting goods, and so on are slashed by up to 90% for subscribed users of its Prime membership program. New deals are popping up every 10 minutes, so many bargain hunters around the world currently have their eyes glued onto the site. Pundits say the company is trying to shore up more Prime members who on average spend $1,500 per year compared to $625 for regular Amazon customers. And it looks like we'll soon be able to see two giant robots battling each other in real life. US robot maker Megabots uploaded a YouTube video challenging its Japanese rival Tsurubashi Heavy Industries to a robot duel. 5 days later, Tsurubashi founder Kogoro Kurata accepted the challenge, pitting his 4-ton single-piloted mecha against the US startup's 5-ton opponent. Now, this is Megabots' second attempt at trying to stage a robot combat. Last October, the company launched a Kickstarter project to build enough robots for a televised battle, but failed to reach the $1.8 million target.
Well, their new strategy seemed to have worked this time. Did they have a set date for this huge battle?
Well, the specifics such as the day, the location, it still needs to be worked out. But US and Japan being the number 1 and 2 players of the robot industry, there's already a lot of hype built around the battle to see which country really has the upper hand in technology.
And I'm sure many Koreans would hope to see a Korean robot battle out in this huge fight like this one in the near future. Thank you, Ms. Rang, for coming in today and sharing your stories with us.
My pleasure.
Well, Korea has committed to cut back on greenhouse gas emissions by 37% by the year 2030. For the past 6 months, with the launch of an emission trading scheme, the country has been working to reduce its carbon footprint, but these efforts often pose challenges for the government and companies as well. Our Im Yoon-hee is here with more details. Welcome to the program, Yoon-hee.
Hello, thank you for having me. So the emissions trading scheme is when entities are given a quota on how much greenhouse emissions they can put out. And when there's an excess amount, they're able to purchase an additional quota from others. Now, this means companies may basically end up making extra payments for these emissions, or if they can't afford that, the only option in the short term is to slow down energy consumption. Now, the concern is while efforts for the environment need to be made, how do you strike a balance between growth and going green? Well, let's get a closer look in this next report.
In an effort to curb greenhouse gas emissions and ensuing global warming, the international community has quotas in place to cap annual emissions.
예전에 그 오염 물질 같은 것을 배출을 할 때 예전에는 아무런 가격을 지불하지 않았습니다. 그런데 탄소 배출권을 사야 한다면 추가적인 비용이 들기 때문에
The emissions trading scheme has helped companies take bolder green growth measures, but fines also challenge their bottom line and can even pose as a threat to the country's overall economic growth.
We cannot have a regulation that is universally and uniformly applied the same way. We need to be respectful of the differences that are there in the world and come up with regulation that suits the needs of each country.
On the global market, carbon emission permits are traded for $0.50 per ton. This puts the cost of emitting 100 million tons at roughly $50 million.
Now, for the global environment, reducing carbon emission is a must. But some feel that such a commitment fails to recognize reality. Already facing a fine of more than $10.5 billion due to excess emissions, some feel that such a cutback will severely undermine competition for many companies.
A look at global greenhouse gases shows that emissions are produced the most from energy production, followed by reclamation and transportation. Korea's power plants have been stepping up eco-friendly measures by adding on greener services and recycling excess heat to boost productivity. But producers say they feel they've hit the limit in cutting any further.
효과적인 감축 수단이 없기 때문에 결국에 가서는 배출권을 사와야 되는데 이게 발전 경영에 큰 영향을 부담을 줄 수 있습니다.
The country's petrochemicals, steel, power producers, and energy companies have been struggling with the green measures.
온실가스 배출 규제 강화는 국내 생산의 축소, 생산 기지의 해외 이전, 투자 지원, 신기술 개발 지원 등을 초래할 수 있습니다.
This doesn't mean Korean firms lag behind in rolling out eco-friendly products. The country's hybrid cars are more rapidly advancing into the global market, while developments in renewable, alternative, and eco-friendly energy sources have also been progressing.
There are now many good examples around the world, not only in Korea but elsewhere, where there are processes and systems and even technologies to reduce energy consumption and become more efficient. I think one of those things that companies can do for a start is to make sure that they have the capability, the manpower, to address some of these issues. And of course, management at the top level need to be very supportive.
Efforts to ensue that economic development and environment-friendly measures go hand in hand have been ongoing in Korea. Global conferences on challenges and opportunities in energy use, transition, and related industries take place as well.
Indeed, energy transition is not a matter for one country like South Korea. Most of the countries, and especially most of the advanced countries, are facing similar challenges. So in that sense, solutions need to be found more collectively. So that will be probably the biggest contribution from this conference, in that Asia and Europe will jointly find the solution for the energy transition.
From fossil fuels to cleaner energy, the industry has seen a general transition. And with this, renewable energy is seen as an increasingly important field to be tapped into. There are even plans in the works to build energy-independent islands that run on solar power.
Cities is where most of the industrial activity takes place. And if cities get their act together and reduce emissions, make them climate neutral in a manner of speaking, then we have solved the problem very rapidly. And if countries rely not on burning fossil fuels, but on renewable sources of energy, we have reduced the problem tremendously.
Come December, over 190 countries will meet in France to discuss the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change and Carbon Gas Emission Schemes. Striking a balance between economic expansion and environmental protection is a question countries around the world will continue to tackle in the future.
So yes, it's been a while since Korea started making efforts for greener development.
Right.
But apart from what we just saw in the report, do you have an example on what measures are in the works now?
Right, so as you mentioned, we did touch upon it in the report, but another great example would be the Independent Energy Island. Now, they're basically trying to run an entire village without fossil fuels and on solar energy instead. Now, in the case of the Gyeonggi provincial government, it's working to create a 10,000 compact solar power plants on building rooftops by 2030.
So how big would you say the market, the renewable market, energy market is at this point?
Right, so 15 years down the line, we're looking at renewable energy becoming the main source of power in the world, pushing aside fossil fuels, so definitely something expected to become much bigger. Now, Korea is working to make sure it can get a toehold in this market. It's already leading in solar power equipment production. Now, much investment is also being poured into other sources like wind power and tidal energy equipment and technology as well.
And of course, getting ahead of the game is always crucial.
Right, exactly.
In industries like these. Thank you, Yuni, for today's report.
You're very welcome.
And that does it for this edition of Money Matters. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next week with plenty of stories as they unfold in Asia and give you a view of the changing landscape of business in the region. I'm Na Hyun-kyung. Thanks for watching.